Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
One, 2. Check me out right here, yo.
Yo, the sun don't shine forever, but as long as it's here, then we might as well shine together. Better now.
Thank you for joining me for another edition of the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. I'm not only joined by myself and Keith, producer extraordinaire, but I'm joined by P. Diddy, Nate Dogg, Notorious B.I.G. If you want to call in, the number is 585-633-7487. I'm joined by guest Jory Dreer from LakerNation.com. How are you doing today, Jory?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm in the middle states. I'm here in Omaha, Nebraska, trying to, get used to the cold weather. Has cold weather hit you yet, or is it going to hit you this year?
I think the cold weather started when the Lakers season began.
What is it like? I mean, for Lakers fans, I know, last year was a debacle with all the injuries, and then this year it starts again with injuries. But at least the expectations going into this year were, okay, at the best, we're going to be a 35-win team. What were your expectations going in, and are they living up to your expectations?
Well, I've always felt that this team is currently constructed was a puzzle. I felt that the roster as is brittle, so they couldn't afford to lose any of their key guys. And right off the bat, they turn around and lose their sixth man, which is Nick Young. Steve Nash goes down for a short amount of time, and it's like the team just had to stay healthy for everything to go right and surpass the record that they had a season ago. But so far, it hasn't happened.
Do you think, they're 0-5, Philadelphia's 0-6. Do you think right now, who do you think is worse?
Well, I think Philadelphia is intentionally trying to lose games. I would say they're worse. I think the 5 games that the Lakers have played, I don't think they were supposed to win those games when you look at the teams on paper and you realize that those teams have been together longer. The only team that has a head coach change was Golden State, but again, those guys are bombers. You have Stephen Curry and you have Klay Thompson in the backcourt, and that team is always dangerous.
Do you think it's a legit possibility Kobe could be traded this year or next?
No. The reason why I say that with such emphasis is because I think that this season is the last time you see the Lakers struggle for quite some time when you look at the cap space that they have going forward. And then the season after, when you have the TV deal kicking in, I think I've always said heading into last summer's free agent class that if you don't get Carmelo or you don't get LeBron, it's a wash because the next tier of free agents, the best ones were restricted free agents. And I think that Chandler Parsons moving on from Houston to Dallas caught everybody by surprise. But outside of those 2 big names, who are you going to get?
Yeah, it seemed, it wasn't like the class of 2011 or, where it's just, even if you missed with one of the top guys, you could still pull off, you could still go after Dirk Nowitzki. He signed, but there were still guys to go after. This class, it was such a steep drop-off that you were either going to get a role player or you were going to get somebody like Boozer that was amnestied. That's pretty much it.
Right. And I think a lot of Laker fans, what they don't understand is the cap floor and the cap ceiling. I don't think the Lakers realistically ever thought that they could be able to get both Carmelo and LeBron. I think the plan was to get one of those guys, resign Pau Gasol, and put them together with Kobe Bryant. And, I mentioned the cap floor and the cap ceiling because if you don't spend that money on Kobe Bryant, you'd end up with a roster of players that you have no future, that has no future with the team. You end up either overspending on guys or guys that are just role players, not quite solid role players, but guys that are role players that cut into the cap space going forward until this summer.
Does it, with Jeannie Buss now being on board, do you have confidence in her, or the more that she's made public appearances, like on ESPN and her saying, things she said have kind of, almost, they get nitpicked now. Do you think it's better for her to stay kind of in the background, or do you like her going out and doing these public appearances on different news channels?
I love Jeannie being on the front line for the simple fact that before she was out there, there was no clarity on who's the Lakers leader, because when you look at her title as president of basketball operations, but she handles the financial part, so everyone would assume that, okay, this happened, Jim Buss is in charge, let's get rid of Jim, and let's hire Jeannie, when in fact, Jeannie is the boss. She just gives Mitch and Jim their leeway to do what they have to do on the basketball side. But let me tell you, Mitch Kupchak and Jim Buss, they're there at the Lakers practice facility 80 to 90% of the time that these guys are practicing. So Jim Buss is very hands-on with what's going on with the organization.
With Jim, do you think that the criticism of him is fair, or do you think that it should be more on Kupchak?
I think that it was a trickle-down effect that started with the veto. I know a lot of people hate discussing it, but when you look at it, the Lakers were the biggest losers of that trade because they got back at this Ronald Pau Gasol, who wasn't the same mentally. It took him some time to really get back on board and get comfortable, and his name was subject to trade rumors going forward every year. They lost the sixth man of the year, Lamar Odom. They did not gain Chris Paul. Their vision of pairing these guys with, at the time, the defensive head coach, Mike Brown, it didn't work. It didn't pan out. So then you go forward, and they obtain Vermont Sessions, and they send out 2 first-round draft picks to Cleveland. So that ties into where the Lakers are now. That ties into the fact that they don't have any picks going forward. It's because of certain deals. But to answer your question more directly, I don't think that you could really point blame at anybody, because this organization was really built on taking risks, from drafting Magic Johnson. Jeannie told us a story where Magic was at her dad's house one time, and he told them after his contract is up, he's going to sign with the Detroit Pistons. He was going to go back home to Michigan. And Dr. Buss didn't buy into it, but that was a risk that they took. The Lakers took another risk some years down the line when they traded an established guy like Vlade Divac for an unknown K. Kobe Bryant. So this organization was built on risk. Sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't.
Before we get back to the Lakers, I just want to update you all on the Packers Bears. It's now 42-0, and we're not even at halftime yet. Now back to the Lakers. It is amazing. I do think the Lakers would have had a better shot when they brought in. Granted, Nash got injured a lot, and things didn't work out with Mike Brown and Dwight Howard. But if Mike Brown hadn't married himself to Eddie Jordan and the Princeton offense right at the beginning, don't you think things probably could have worked out a little better for that team before having to hire D'Antoni?
Absolutely. I feel the Princeton offense was the beginning of the end for him, because you have these guys who most of them was a holdover from the season before as far as the role players, but you bring in a guy like Steve Nash, and then you bring in Dwight Howard, who, in his defense, wasn't his best self. He wasn't 100%. But now you want these guys to learn a new offense as opposed to letting Steve Nash create himself. I think the writing was on the wall with the expectations that they went into that season. They was the super team. They were the team that was supposed to beat Miami, but they end up winless in the preseason, and they end up 1-4 in the regular season.
Don't you think it should have been the writing on the wall for the Lakers to not go after Steve Nash? Nash should have been when James Dolan decided to pull a deal off the table to trade for him.
Well, I would have to agree with you there, but I get what they were doing. They wanted to bring Showtime back. They seen that Steve Nash was an all-star prior the season before in Phoenix, and they really wanted that to mesh with Dwight Howard. They wanted to take the ball handling responsibilities away from Kobe Bryant, and that's why they brought in Steve Nash. I do, however, question everything that they've given up for him in terms of the draft picks?
With Nash, how much does it bug you at all, the golfing, after he's been declared out for the season?
Initially it did, until he wrote a letter, and I read the letter on his Facebook page where he mentioned golfing being different than playing basketball. He mentioned skiing being different from playing basketball. When you look at the guys he's guarding, with the Chris Pauls and the Russell Westbrooks and the Stephen Currys, it's a track and field out there. It's in golf, it's isolation. It's you, it's the club, and the ball. So it doesn't bother me too much.
The moves that the Lakers made this offseason, bringing in Boozer, drafting Julius Randle, re-signing Nick Young. Which of those, with Boozer and the injury to Nick Young and the injury to Julius Randle, I mean, what's the going down the line here? What do you see from this team? How much of a rebuilding project is this?
I don't feel that the Lakers are rebuilding, because looking forward this summer, they have over $30 million in cap space, and that's what Kobe Bryant signed at the number he signed at. Now, Jordan Hill has a team option next season, and I'm not saying that they get rid of him, but if you remove his salary from the cap, now you're dealing with nearly $40 million in cap space, with names like DeAndre Jordan this summer, with names like Rajon Rondo this summer, with names like LaMarcus Aldridge coming up this summer. So I think they're in a good place now. If they strike out this summer, now we're talking about rebuilding, because Phoenix has their pick. It's top 5 lottery protected, but let's be honest, the Lakers aren't trying to lose games. They're just losing games because the teams that they're playing are so much superior to them.
Yeah, it's I'm thinking with the Lakers, I don't know, like, if they strike out again this offseason. Yeah, I don't know what you do, because it's like they're already so far, back in the game that, and they've never had to do the rebuild through the draft, at least not since late 70s. They've never really had to do that. It would be I would actually kind of find it interesting to see how they go about it, and if they would go try to hire somebody other than Mitch Kupchak to do that rebuilding process. Like, I mean, you look at what the Dodgers have done. They bring in a kind of a Moneyball type of guy, Andrew Friedman. It would be interesting to see if the Lakers would try to do the same thing, to bring in a GM like that in the NBA.
I think two things the Lakers have in their favor that they didn't have this summer. Free agents no longer have the question of what Kobe Bryant are we going to get. Free agents no longer have the question of who's running the organization. These are two critical things. People write and they talk about Kobe Bryant being a volume scorer this season, but just let me run by some numbers to you. This man is coming off of 2 major injuries, and right now he's averaging 27 points per game on 40% shooting. Now, the percentage might pop out at you, but when you look at the rest of the field, you have LeBron James averaging 23 points, and he's only shooting 41%. And look a little deeper, you have Carmelo Anthony averaging 19 points, and he's only shooting 39%. So I don't think Kobe Bryant is as much as the question as is the talent around him.
I know, in writing about the Lakers, it's a slippery slope to have criticism of Kobe Bryant, because you just get a load of comments on your page about, oh, you don't understand, or people with Kobe colored shaded glasses. If there were some complaints you have about Kobe, what would they be?
That he's been so peaceful to this point.
Mm-hmm.
You used to Kobe not really lashing out, and I understand why he's not lashing out, because this is the first season that he's been healthy. Going forward, the first preseason and season that he's been healthy since the injury, and for Kobe to lash out would kind of be like a ripple effect, because a lot of people criticize the Lakers for the money they gave him. So it kind of be like you got paid and now you want out.
Yeah. Do you